Hello, Namaskar. Welcome to my pod, the CAA Show. CAA, as all of you know, is Conversations and Analysis. My name is Juggi Bhasin. So I bring this podcast to you from Miami in the United States. And as all of you know, tomorrow, that is on the 5th of November, it is election day in the US. And I hope to bring you another podcast on election news in the US. But that is for tomorrow. Let's talk about today, what is happening and the news which is gripping our country, that is back home in India. And that, of course, are the attacks on the Hindu temples in Brampton and in Vancouver in Canada. I'm going to talk of that particular issue. And to be more focused on this issue, I'm going to talk of the fact that why do we refer to this goon squad, to these thugs, to these terrorists in Canada as Khalistanis. I personally believe we should not be calling them Khalistanis. I'll give you my reasons for that. I'm going to expand on this issue a little later in the podcast. But let's first understand what is really going on in Canada. Canada today, that is in 2024, in a very bizarre and in a very strange way, reminds me of another country way back in the 70s and the 80s, and that country was South Africa, white South Africa, when the white rulers of South Africa used to practice apartheid. It was a racist regime, and Canada today has started resembling the apartheid regime of South Africa of the 70s. Its racist policies are now there for everyone to see, and if proof was needed, then the proof is there as what has happened today in these temple attacks in Vancouver and in Brampton. See the reaction of the police force out there, which has been conducting the so-called investigation into the Niger issue. The police force actually pinned down and arrested 3 people who were all Hindus, and we all know who the instigators were in this particular case. So I'm going to talk of all these issues in this particular podcast, but before I do that, as always, I would urge all of you to please subscribe to my channel, to the CAA Show. It's very simple really. All you have to do is to press that red button on your screen. Subscription is of course completely free. Would also really appreciate if you could like the show and share this video with your friends. Now, let's start from point A, right from the beginning, before I even come to these issues which I have referred to in this podcast as, who are these people? I will call them Khalistanis for the moment, but I don't want to do that as we go along, because I want to disabuse not only myself, but I want to disabuse everyone that we should not be calling them Khalistanis. So who exactly are these people who are creating so many problems for the Indian government, who have fractured the relationship between Canada and India, who actually are creating problems for India actually on a global level between the Five Eyes countries also? Who exactly are these people? A very simple answer would be that these are people of Indian origin. Many of them are Sikhs, not all of them, who have gone from India, that is from Punjab to Canada. But you take a closer look at these people and then the picture becomes a little more clear who these people are. There was a movie which came long back, a Hollywood movie, which is a path-breaking movie called Scarface. It had this great actor called Al Pacino. And the movie begins where it profiles the Cubans who were coming from the island of Cuba into America during that particular time. And the voiceover, that is a voice which narrates the story, the movie starts, and the voiceover says that these Cubans are people who are no longer wanted on the island of Cuba. They are welcome to go back to go to the United States. And who are these people? These people were literally the scum of the society. They were prisoners, they were rapists, they were criminals, they were drug lords, gang lords, all those kind of people who had been freed from the prison and they were escaping from Cuba into America. And that actually, the film is actually based on a real story. And those are the kind of people who came, the first wave of Cubans who came from the island of Cuba into America. Now these elements, these so-called Khalistanis are actually very, very similar. A whole lot of them who have come from Punjab are people who have very, very dubious backgrounds, people who are, first of all, they are not particularly very well educated. These are people who, many of them have criminal records. They are part of gangs. They are involved into drug activities. They are involved in human trafficking. All these activities have continued when they have landed in Canada. On top of that, the extremist element in which is found in this community is actually, or the so-called activist element, or trying to portray that you are a people in exile, is a very convenient element which they have taken on to actually hide their real faces, their real selves. And though that is not a very good picture, that is not a very pretty picture to look at, these are people really who are the dregs of society who have gone over to Canada. So let's be very, very clear about that. Number two, these people, as I said, the kind of people they are not professionals. They are not the new IT class of people who are going from India all over the world. As I said, these are people who, for want of a better word, from criminal backgrounds. If not that, then they are into jobs like they are truck drivers, lorry drivers, labor work. Those are the kind of people. If you do a kind of a survey of this particular lot, then you will find that there are hardly any people who are people of note, people of eminence, people of a certain caliber which one can be proud of, who have gone from the country. They are not those kind of people. And point number three is that despite all the hoopla, despite all the noises these people keep on making, the fact is they are a very small, microscopic community of the Sikh population. The majority of the Sikh population, 95% of them, don't support Khalistan. Not only in India but also in Canada. These are a very small, microscopic unit of Sikhs who have become, for want of a better word, as Khalistanis. Then point number four. I am also a Sikh, so therefore I can tell you this thing, that these people are not Sikhs by any stretch of the imagination. First of all, they don't observe the 5 Ks of Sikhism. Most of them are clean shaven. Most of them, they are addicted to drugs, to marijuana, to all kinds of substance abuse. These people do not observe the tenets of Sikhism, neither do they understand the historical background of Sikhism, where Sikhism arose, where it came from, the symbiotic relationship between Sikhism and Hinduism, their complete aversion to the Hindu faith, the targeting of the Hindu community, the targeting of Hindu temples. It only goes to or betrays their complete lack of knowledge, of awareness of the roots of Sikhism. So they cannot be called Sikhs by any stretch of the imagination. Number four, and that's a point which I referred to in the beginning also, that they masquerade themselves as people in exile, or a people who are activists, or people who are struggling for some kind of a homeland. This is a complete make-believe situation they have created, because there are no takers for Khalistan in the state of Punjab in 2024. The Khalistan issue actually has been dead for decades and decades. Yes, it was there in the 1980s during the time of Indira Gandhi, but after Operation Blue Star and after the cleanup of so many of these extremist elements in Punjab, what happened after that during the time of KPS Gill, the Khalistan movement actually has died. It has been snuffed away. It has long gone. But this movement, at least intellectually, has been kept alive in Canada by these people. Then let's come to the most important part, who these people really now are and what do they mean to the establishment in Canada. Unfortunately, these people, the goon squads, these criminal elements, many of them also terrorists also. Now these people are what we call people, literally, as you must have heard of the term called gun for hire. So these are people who are elements for hire for the Canadian government. So they are saying, come use us, take our services. You want to pressurize the Indian government, you want to create problems for the Indian government, then we are there. We are ready to do all the dirty work. We are ready to be the front face of that work. So that unfortunately is another side of this particular goon squad, which we have to understand. These are people literally rent for hire for creating problems for the Indian government. And therefore, the entire idea is that it's not only Canada, but there are other powers also who are interested in this kind of a goon squad, because what the bigger powers, the more important powers, what they do is they use this particular community, a very small community, but a community again of people who live by hate, who live for hate, who are propagating hate all the time. They use them as pawns, they use them as chess pieces to move against the Indian government in a larger geostrategic drama, in a larger geostrategic game which is going on. These people become willing pawns of these governments, and therefore really in that particular sense they are what we call in a certain sense mercenaries for hire. And then the last important thing to understand about these people is that how they have shot into a little bit of prominence, or how they are, people we keep talking about constantly, is because they, one very devilishly smart thing I would say which they have done is that ever since they have come into Canada, they have taken control of the gurdwaras in Canada. And the gurdwaras, I need not say, are frequented both by the Sikhs and the Hindus. The revenues in the gurdwaras is extremely very high, but these people control the finances inside the gurdwaras in Canada. And you have to listen to many ex-Canadian parliamentarians, including Dosanjh and so many of the people who will verify the fact that the real money power which these people have actually comes from the gurdwaras because of the control of the gurdwaras. And the gurdwaras are then used, and that's the last part which I want to talk about, is they're not used for the propagation of the Guru's teachings, rather they are used to peddle hate. They are used as places to peddle the vicious teaching of extremist leaders of the 80s in Punjab. They are used to create a separatist agenda and a narrative which is spoken about all the time, till the newer generations, the younger lot which is coming up, they are completely brainwashed. And it doesn't stop there. What these people have also done, and because I'm defining these people, who these people really are, is that what they also do is that there are a lot of students who come from India and they go to Canada, and many of these students, they are out on a limb because they don't have too much of support, they are short of money, they're looking for jobs, and therefore they come into the ambit of these extremist elements in the gurdwaras. So probably sometimes they even just go there to maybe have langar or a free meal. And then these people are literally blackmailed into protesting against the Indian government in front of the High Commission, in front of the consulates in Canada. They use literally as cannon fodder by these people. So that's the other part of these people, of this goon squad, which we really have to understand. And therefore, once we have understood the profile of these kind of people and the kind of havoc these people are creating in Canada, therefore I come to the central point of this particular podcast, is that why are we calling these people Khalistanis? Why are we constantly referring to them as if these people really matter to us? Let's state facts. For instance, The fact of the matter is this: yes, these people are of Indian origin, but most of them had left India a long time back. And even if they have left India in the last few years, also it's fine. They have settled there. They have all got Canadian citizenship, mostly on specious grounds like taking asylum. There is no persecution of the Sikhs which is going on in India, in Punjab. But again, they have taken grounds of asylum because Canada likes to do these kind of things. They like to play these kind of games. They like to create this kind of asylum seeking kind of a community which they can manipulate and use at will. And therefore, these people in that sense are now Canadian citizens. And therefore, rightly, we should be calling them as the goon squad, as the thuggery squad, as the terrorist squad of Canada. They are not Khalistanis because there is no such thing as Khalistan in the world. Khalistan, as I said, not an iota of Khalistan, not even a small chink of Khalistan. Nothing of Khalistan exists in India, in the state of Punjab. They are of course welcome to create a Khalistan in Canada, which probably, if once these things they worsen, they will probably be leading towards that particular path only. But what we really do is that by constantly talking about Khalistan or these Khalistanis, what we are betraying psychologically also is that we are not willing to completely liberate ourselves, not completely to let go of these people from us. We still, in a certain sense, I think the Indian government and even the Indian people in a sense like to take responsibility. There is a little bit of guilt. Oh no, these are still our people. They're people of Indian origins. They might be PIOs. They might be people who come back during the holidays to Punjab. It's not important at all. The fact is, first of all, I personally believe that the Indian government should really crack down. You should in fact have some kind of a loyalty test. If people who are loyal to the Union of India, only such people should be given PIO cards. Only such people should be allowed back on visas to come back to Punjab. Rest of the people should be screened. They should be stopped completely or arrested as soon as they land in India. And therefore, the time really has come after this particular incident, these two incidents which have happened, which are very, very serious incidents, by the way, attacks on the Hindu community in Brampton and in Vancouver. After that, it's come to a point where we have to say that now we are dealing with the enemy. The way we deal with the Pakistanis, or to that extent, now things are getting a little better with China, but we used to deal with China. Now we have to deal with Canada in the same way, and these are Canadian citizens. These are the Canadian goon squad. These are the Canadian thuggery squad. And therefore forget Khalistan. Khalistan has no meaning as far as we are concerned. Because what's going to happen is, once we start talking that particular language, it's only then we will finally let go of these people. They will be out of our minds, out of our consciousness. And I would even go a step further and say that the Indian government, a time has come and we should practically withdraw all our diplomats from Canada and leave a little bit of the visa back and forth, and that also to the right kind of people who want to come back to visit Punjab, to a third party country. You can pay that third party country services fee for processing visas. This practice has been done earlier with various in other countries also. We can also follow the same processes, but our engagement with Canada as a country or with the goon squad of Canada should be completely reduced to a minimum to save ourselves the trauma, the bother, the irritation and the anger which comes along with all these activities which are piled upon us. Because please remember, once you have distanced yourself, once you have cut away all these links with Canada, with this goon squad, with the Canadian government, then who will they protest against? There will be no high commissions there will be no consulates out there. Where are they going to protest? Then that frustration, that anger, that schizophrenia which grips so many of them, that will be unleashed on the Canadian government, and we will watch for that day, which is going to happen. Eventually, that is what is going to happen. The crime lords, the drug lords in Canada, they have already started wreaking havoc in Canadian society, but it will happen more and more. But what we need to do is to cut this so-called umbilical cord which we have with these people. Yes, I'm repeating again, they are people of Indian origin, but now they are Canadian citizens. They are the goon squad of Canada. It's the Canadian government's responsibility. Let them handle it. Let them face all this thing. We should withdraw all our personnel, all our diplomats from Canada. Give the visa processing, outsource it to a third party country. That's the way to deal with Canada. And therefore, in a larger level, what we are also really doing by, if we take these steps, is that in a certain sense, as I said, we cut away the umbilical cord. We also then free ourselves of obligation. We free ourselves of what we can call a certain kind of a guilt, if for want of a better word, that oh no, at the end of the day they are misled people, they are still our brothers and sisters. I'm sorry, I don't agree. These people have crossed the line a long time back. If you see some of the videos which are coming out daily, the way they disrespect the flag, the way they hurl abuses, the way they have the vulgarity, the sheer vulgarity, the sheer viciousness with which they operate. I'm sorry, I don't think so. We Indians want any part of these people at all, and therefore the time really has come is to snap all links with such people. And once we do that, only then we can formulate our policies better. We'll have clarity of a relationship with Canada. We will have clarity of a relationship with the Five Eyes countries also. But this relationship now is coming to a point, and I think maybe the Prime Minister, when he was referring to the fact that if these things continue, there will be serious consequences for the relationship between India and Canada. My own guesswork is that the Prime Minister was probably referring to this particular eventuality. We're heading to this eventuality where there might be a complete termination of relationship with Canada. From our end, of course, we have to school our children. We have to school our aspiring students who think that there is some kind of El Dorado in Canada, where they keep going to Canada thinking there are jobs waiting for them. There are no jobs in that country. The country has no housing worth speaking of. We in fact are contributing almost $6 to $7 billion, to the Canadian economy. There is no need to do that. The same students have to be told, they have to be, tutelage has to be given to these people that they are better served if they go to other countries. They can go to Singapore, they can go to other countries which are better bets, to France, so many other countries. Canada is now should be off the charts. So immediately stop the flow of Indian students into Canada. Even if you don't snap off diplomatic relations with Canada, but you withdraw all your personnel from there, give third party outsourcing of visa and consular services, whatever little bit of services which remain, to a third party country. That's the way to deal with Canada, and that's the way to deal with the goon squad. And finally, we people as Indians have to learn not to say Khalistanis, because even by saying Khalistanis, we are in a way kind of trying to still say to them that, oh, you are still part of us. They are not part of us. They are Canadian citizens, the goon, the thuggery squad of Canada. And so, on this note, I come to the end of this particular podcast. I hope you really enjoyed it. You like the show, do subscribe to it, and till next time, which is of course till tomorrow, I hope to bring you a podcast tomorrow on the election news, on the electrifying election news in America. But till then, it's goodbye and cheers from my end.